Then Charles and Camilla popped in, having spoken earlier of their excitement.
I think it's a wonderfully uplifting moment for the country. It's very exciting, and I think it's wonderful for the grandfather. He's brilliant with children.
William and Kate and the baby are expected to leave the hospital later this evening. We'll bring you the very latest, also tonight. The killing of PC Keith Blakelock back in 1985 during the riots on Broadwater Farm. A man has been charged with his murder. A Ukrainian student appears in court accused of the murder of a Muslim pensioner and planting 3 bombs in mosques in the West Midlands. How white English teenagers from state schools are now less likely to apply to university than black students. Countdown to Glasgow 2014, Sir Chris Hoy helps the city prepare for the Commonwealth Games.
On BBC London, go home or face arrest. Outrage at the Home Office's latest campaign targeting illegal immigrants. And a man's arrested over the discovery of a woman's body in a suitcase in North London.
Good evening and welcome to BBC News at 6. The Duke and Duchess of Cambridge have thanked hospital staff for their tremendous care the day after their baby boy, the third in line to the throne, was born. He's still not been seen. William and Kate remain in St Mary's Hospital in West London, but all 3 are expected to leave soon this evening. They've been visited by both sets of grandparents, Prince Charles and the Duchess of Cornwall, as well as the Middletons. Here's our royal correspondent, Nicholas Witchell.
Buckingham Palace this morning, the changing of the guard and a change to the programme of music. Congratulations, a familiar tune reflecting a widespread sentiment as the country marked the birth of William and Catherine's son. At Westminster Abbey there was a special peal of the Abbey bells. And at the Tower of London, the birth was marked by the firing of cannon. In Green Park too, close by Buckingham Palace, where the 41-gun salute was fired by the King's Troop Royal Horse Artillery. At the private Lindo wing of St Mary's Hospital, a taxi brought Kate's parents, Michael and Carol Middleton, the first family visitors to arrive to see the couple and their baby. By now it had become apparent that William and Kate were in no hurry to leave the hospital. A statement was issued on their behalf. We would like to thank the staff at the Lindo wing and the whole hospital for the tremendous care the 3 of us have received. An hour and a quarter after arriving at the hospital, Mr. and Mrs. Middleton emerged and, after a few moments' hesitation, stepped forward and, from Carol Middleton, the first eyewitness account of the new baby.
He's absolutely beautiful, they're both doing really well and we're so thrilled.
How are the parents doing?
Fabulously.
What's the first couple like?
Amazing. It's all coming back.
Have you given them any suggestions for names?
Absolutely not. But thank you.
In case you missed it, the last question there was, have you given them any suggestions about names? The answer, absolutely not. That's a matter for the couple, and there are no clues yet as to what they've decided.
Hello.
These are all yours?
These are mine, yes. 3.
3?
Up in East Yorkshire, the baby's other grandparent was sounding relaxed about his new role.
How are you feeling?
Sue, who works in our office.
Very exciting.
Sue, who works.
And the new step-grandmother was, well, delighted.
Oh, I think it's wonderful news. I think, mother, son, father are all doing well, and I think it's a wonderfully uplifting moment for the country. It's very exciting, and I think it's wonderful for the grandfather. He's brilliant with children, so you'll have a wonderful time.
Thank you very much.
Late this afternoon, the grandfather, the royal one that is, arrived at St Mary's Hospital with his wife for their first encounter with the family's newest member.
You had a long wait.
On this occasion, theirs is a supporting role. The stars of this particular episode have yet to make their appearance. Will William and Kate bring their son out of this door to face the world tonight? If they do, this is the scene that will greet them. Little wonder, perhaps, that they're prolonging their privacy for as long as possible.
Well, Nicholas Witchell is still outside the hospital now. Because, of course, everyone's waiting for that moment when William and Kate come out with the baby, and Prince Charles dropped a little bit of a hint that it may not be too much longer now.
He did, yeah. He left, about 5 or 6 minutes ago, looking very content, and he appeared to say that we should see them soon. Now, it was very difficult to hear what he said because there's so much noise here, but that was the thrust of certainly what he said to reporters. And we do now have some official guidance, and it is expected, and this is official guidance now from Kensington Palace, it is expected that they will leave later this evening, but no time for that has been given. So it is expected that they will leave later this evening. Clearly they've been savouring the tranquility and the privacy in there, prolonging their stay within the Lindo wing for as long as they can. I think that's a sign that they want to do this their way. They're not going to be pressured or pushed by the knowledge that there is this vast throng of international media and a curious world out here, but the news is that we are expecting them now to leave at some point later this evening.
Nicholas, thank you. And of course, if the royal couple do leave the hospital, we will go straight back live to that. Well, nowhere has the royal baby been celebrated more than in the village where the Duchess of Cambridge grew up. They were up all night in Bucklebury in Berkshire, and as our correspondent John Kay reports, the party has only just begun.
Who knows what time he was born yesterday afternoon?
They've been following every detail here at Bucklebury Primary, and they're proud their village has played a part in royal history.
Maybe some of you sitting in the front here will be able to watch him being crowned King of England. Won't that be exciting? And perhaps you'll remember when you were very small in school, you'll remember the day that he was born.
That's a big smile.
No sign of tiredness at the school drop-off this morning, despite a very late night.
Everybody takes Kate right into their hearts, and William. I mean, she's a local girl. She uses, the local pub when she's here. She uses the shop, so people feel slightly like they own her, I guess. But in a kind way, she's allowed to be her own person when she's here, so that's really nice. People respect her privacy.
Well, that privacy is now being very closely guarded. Look, in the lanes around the Middletons' home here, there is suddenly very obvious security, because this is where Kate and her baby son are expected to spend time in the next few weeks. And messages of congratulations have been pouring in here from all over the world. On patrol in the Caribbean, Royal Navy crews spelt out the news.
Congratulations.
And on Anglesey, this from Prince William's RAF search and rescue mates.
William, I hope you enjoy your paternity leave, and we'll see you on shift soon. Yay!
Along the North Wales coast where the Prince works, we found excitement and a little baby fatigue.
The first 15 pages of my newspaper, which irritates me absolutely dreadfully. It's just too much.
At Birmingham Heartlands Hospital, Tyler has no idea that he shares a birthday with a future king. But like all babies born yesterday, he will get a silver coin to prove it. Wahida's new daughter will also get one, but she was too busy dealing with her own labour to worry about the royal birth.
My husband did say, Kate's gone into labour, and I was like, which Kate? And he was like, Kate, Prince William's wife, and I was like, oh, give me my castanet.
In St Andrews, where William and Kate first met, they're thinking about gifts.
We almost felt they were part of us in the town when they were here during their time, so for us it's even more exciting.
Just one day old, and already quite a reaction. John Kay, BBC News.
Now for today's other news. A man has been charged with the murder of PC Keith Blakelock, the officer killed in the Broadwater Farm riots in North London back in 1985. Nicholas Jones, aged 44, will appear at Westminster Magistrates Court tomorrow. Our Home Affairs correspondent Tom Simons has more.
Broadwater Farm, October 1985. Some of the worst violence mainland police officers have ever faced. Petrol bombs, concrete blocks thrown from walkways, guns. As police struggled to protect firefighters, one of them, eyewitnesses said, slipped on wet ground, fell and was surrounded by rioters with machetes. PC Keith Blakelock, a father of 3, died of multiple stab wounds. He's remembered by this memorial on his home beat, Muswell Hill in North London. The suspect is Nicholas Jacobs, 44, from Hackney. 4 people arrested have not been charged because of lack of evidence. The family of PC Keith Blakelock say they've never given up hope in getting justice for him. We welcome this news, they say, and extend our eternal gratitude to the Metropolitan Police Service. The first investigation began the day after the riots, with house-to-house inquiries. 2 years later, Winston Silcott, Mark Braithwaite and Engin Raghip were wrongly convicted of his murder and later cleared. Reopening the investigation, police released pictures of PC Blakelock's blood-stained overalls, tape marking stab wounds. The new prosecution is likely to make use of new DNA techniques. On Broadwater Farm, the wrongful convictions in this case did not help relations between police and residents. There's still mistrust, but those who've lived through it all now see signs of change.
The police did some very wrong things back in those days, you know, and as well as the community, you know. But now, you know, as we've progressed over the years, we've learned to work together a lot more.
The reopened investigation into what happened here has taken 10 years to get to this point. And along the way, senior officers have repeatedly promised the widow of Keith Blakelock they would not give up. Tom Simons, BBC News, Broadwater Farm.
The Chancellor of the Exchequer has met mortgage lenders and house builders to discuss plans to underwrite billions of pounds worth of mortgages for prospective homeowners. The proposals are an extension of the current Help to Buy scheme, offering government guarantees for those unable to afford large deposits. But some business leaders are describing the scheme as potentially disastrous, as our personal finance correspondent Simon Gompertz reports.
If there's going to be a strong recovery, what part will housing play in that? The government wants cheaper mortgages and to lift buyers with small deposits onto the housing ladder. But will Help to Buy deliver the right boost to the rest of the economy? Needing a helping hand is Caroline Williams because she doesn't have a hefty deposit. Next year, the extended Help to Buy scheme will provide people like her with loans partly guaranteed by the government, meaning she'd only need a 5% deposit to qualify for a low-cost mortgage.
It's just really difficult. 50% of my pay on rent, then say another 25% on bills. Keep looking at houses, think, no, still can't buy. I'll just put kids and a family back another year then.
Even now, there are clear signs of revival in the housing market. House prices are up 3.7% since last year. That's the fastest rate of increase for 3 years. Total mortgage lending is up 26% on the year. And the number of first-time buyers who are managing to get a mortgage, that's up 42%. So better news on the economy. Existing government schemes are already having an impact. But there's growing concern that if more for sale signs are already being converted into sold, then the expanded Help to Buy scheme will simply push up prices.
Just by pumping more and more money into mortgages and not putting more money into building homes means that we're going to create another housing bubble that will push prices up and actually put houses even further out of the reach of many first-time buyers.
To people who want to buy their first home.
To counter talk of bubbles, George Osborne told bosses of the big banks to make careful checks on what people can afford to make sure there isn't another boom in reckless lending. Simon Gompertz, BBC News.
A Ukrainian student has appeared in court accused of the murder of a Birmingham pensioner and terror offences. 25-year-old Pavlo Lapshin has been charged with killing Mohammed Salim as he returned from a mosque. He's also charged with planting explosives at 3 locations in the West Midlands. Matt Prodger was in court.
This is Mohammed Salim, an 82-year-old grandfather at a family event. He was killed while walking home from a mosque in Birmingham nearly 3 months ago. His family had no idea why.
It's been difficult for us for the last 3 months, and definitely we have all taken his death personally, and it's been very hard for all of us.
And this is Mr. Salim's alleged killer, Pavlo Lapshin, a Ukrainian student. 5 days before the murder, he'd arrived in Birmingham to take up a placement at a software firm. Police arrested him last week. He was taken to court in London this morning. Pavlo Lapshin appeared in the dock flanked by 3 police officers. He said little apart from confirming his name and date of birth. As well as being accused of the murder of Mohammed Salim, he's also been charged with terrorist offences relating to the bombing of 3 mosques in the West Midlands. He's further alleged to have gathered together bomb-making equipment, including explosive chemicals and modified mobile phones. It's more than a month since a bomb exploded outside a mosque in Walsall, followed by others in Tipton and Wolverhampton. The security minister is visiting the region tonight, but some local Muslims complain that the political and police response was slow.
There's 3 terrorist attacks, and as we've learnt recently, it's also part and parcel of a murder inquiry, so it is quite big, and the focus hasn't been there that I think it should have had.
Detectives travelled to Ukraine this morning for further investigation. Pavlo Lapshin will appear at the Old Bailey in 2 days' time. Matt Prodger, BBC News at Westminster Magistrates Court.
The time's just gone 6:15. Our top story this evening. Both sets of grandparents visit the new royal baby a day after the 3rd in line to the throne is born. And coming up, a golden start for Britain's Paralympians in the World Championships.
Later on BBC London News, Gatwick Airport reveals its plans for expansion, including where a second runway could be. And from time traveller to superhero, Catherine Tate is back, and this time she's the boss.
Just this time last year, London was gearing up for the start of the Olympics. In exactly a year from today, it will be Glasgow's turn to host a huge sporting party, the Commonwealth Games. The city will play host to 4,500 athletes competing in 17 sports. The organisers hope to sell 1 million tickets. Laura Bicker reports on the preparations, and her report contains some flash photography.
Pointing down and now wiggle and push down. Keep it. There we go. Done that. One hand.
Saddling up for Scotland's biggest sporting spectacle. A new generation of track cyclists are being trained at the Sir Chris Hoy Velodrome. Built for the 2014 Games, the venue is proving almost as popular as the man himself.
He's won so many gold medals at the Olympics that it's just amazing.
What would you like to say to Chris Hoy?
I'd like to say you're a very good cyclist, and I wish I was like you.
He may not be competing next year, but as a Games ambassador, he's determined that Glasgow 2014 will be just as successful as London 2012.
This generation of young people who see people winning medals and see people succeeding, and they believe that they can do the same when they grow up too. And it is inspiring when you see an event up close.
The host will be Glasgow.
It's been 6 years since Glasgow won the bid. In that time, 3 new venues have been built. The bill for hosting the event will add up to over £500 million, but organisers say it will be well spent.
We've already got all our permanent sports events up and running. They're being used by the public, they're being used for competition. There's a legacy happening right now.
Tickets go on sale in just a few weeks' time, and the whole idea behind this party atmosphere is to try to get people to pay for those seats.
And that will be the real test as to whether the public has engaged with these games. Laura Bicker, BBC News, Glasgow.
White teenagers from state schools in England are less likely to apply to university than any other ethnic group, fewer than 1 in 3, according to figures from the admissions body UCAS. Black teenagers are applying to go to university in record numbers. Our education correspondent Rita Chakrabarti has more.
I'm going to hand out a set of tasks.
Schools are winding down for the summer, but not here at Nottingham University. They're holding a summer school for teenagers who may not have thought of higher education. Some of them could be the first in their families to go.
Neither of my parents did, and I think that's motivated me even more so to do something that they never did.
I don't think I'm the richest person, but I know I can get into a uni that I really want to get into through hard work.
Figures show that white pupils from state schools in England are now the least likely of any ethnic group to aspire to university. 29% of white 18-year-olds have applied this year. That's compared to 34% of black 18-year-olds. There's been a surge in black applicants, up 70% since 2006.
Precisely enjoying it.
Melvin Mazue is doing his second degree in neuroscience in Oxford. His parents are Nigerian and he thinks young people from his background are aiming high.
I think the first reason is to do with black role models who are a lot more visible at the moment. And the second reason is probably to do with families, and I think there's a drive from families and there's a support from families, black families. And I think finally the economic climate and the employment climate is quite bleak at the moment, and a lot of young people see education as a way out of that.
This is the second year since tuition fees went up to a maximum £9,000. Applications in England, where numbers dropped most last year, have recovered, up 1 percentage point to 35%. And while the gap between rich and poor has narrowed since 2004, it's still the case that advantaged pupils are nearly 3 times as likely to apply.
Long-term outreach work by universities into schools and colleges is probably one of the reasons why we've seen the increase in application rate, and we need to do more of it.
A good degree can set you up for life. Today's figures suggest that a broader group feel university could be within their grasp. Rita Chakrabarti, BBC News.
The Conservative Party's election advisor, Lynton Crosby, has denied that he had any conversation or discussion with David Cameron over the government's tobacco policy, in particular its decision to postpone plans for plain packaging of cigarettes. Mr Crosby, who has links to the tobacco industry, described as false suggestions that he'd behaved improperly. Well, our Deputy Political Editor, James Landale, is in Westminster. James, what more can you tell us about what Mr Crosby has been saying?
Well, Fiona, David Cameron's been under pressure over the influence or an apparent influence of his election advisor, Lynton Crosby, for some days now. In particular, ever since the government postponed its decision on standardised cigarette packaging. Labour critics suspected the hand of Lynton Crosby in that decision because his firm advises tobacco companies. And since then, Mr Cameron has been very careful in saying he's never been lobbied by Mr Crosby, but he's never actually said whether or not they actually discussed the issue. Well, now Mr Crosby has issued a very clear statement saying specifically at no time has he had any conversation or discussion with or lobbied the Prime Minister or the Health Secretary or a Health Minister on plain packaging on tobacco issues. Also, the Cabinet Secretary, Jeremy Hayward, has turned down a Labour request for an inquiry into all of this. He's also issued what appears to be some kind of ground rules that were drawn up for Mr Crosby when he got this job with the Conservative Party. So Labour tonight say, look, there are loads more questions, in particular if Mr Crosby can be this clear, why can't the Prime Minister? But Downing Street tonight are hoping that this is enough to draw a line under this row and allow the Prime Minister to appear in public without being asked about it constantly.
OK, James Landale at Westminster, thank you. The World Paralympic Championships are underway in France. British athletes are already repeating their success at the London Games with 8 gold medals already won. And 1 year on, they've seen a real change in the way Paralympic sport is being viewed. Andy Swiss reports from Lyon.
On the inside, this is where we'd expect Richard Whitehead to come.
From Paralympic champion to world champion, double amputee Richard Whitehead, one of the heroes of London, now heroic in Lyon. The British team are once again showing their golden touch. Aled Davis also victorious today in the discus at a championships which are basking in London's afterglow.
I remember the World Champs, my first ever senior in 2011, and you could count the people in the crowd on your hand. And, and now that there's people coming out of their own choice and wanting to see these guys, I'm actually saying, wow, these guys are taking stuff to the next level.
Certainly these championships are showcasing the improving strength in depth of Paralympic sport, with more athletes, more countries and records tumbling. But for all the talents on display here, there is one conspicuous absentee. Oscar Pistorius, for so long the Paralympic figurehead, is awaiting a murder trial in South Africa. Some feared the sport would struggle without him, but one of a new generation of stars believes otherwise.
We've made new heroes now, not just British athletes who can fill that hole and show that, you know what, we can all do what Oscar did for this sport. And I think London really proved that, and then the World Championships here in Lyon have really just shown that, you know what, people won't just come to see him run.
Now he comes through. With 8 gold medals here, Britain has already equalled its pre-championships target. Both they and the sport, it seems, are moving on. Andy Swiss, BBC News, Lyon.
More now on our top story, and still the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge and their baby boy remain in hospital in West London, although they are expected to leave shortly. This is what Prince Charles had to say as he left just about half an hour ago.
You wait and see, you'll see in a minute.
Well, our royal correspondent Nick Witchell is outside St Mary's in Paddington. So Nick, any news on the possible moment of departure?
For once, there is. We can now be definite. They will be leaving this evening, probably within the next 30 to 35 minutes. This statement from Kensington Palace: the Duchess of Cambridge will be discharged this evening from St Mary's Hospital. The Duke and Duchess and their son will travel home to Kensington Palace. They reiterate their thanks to the hospital. Now, we understand that it is likely that they will depart through those doors over there by 7 o'clock or round about that sort of time. And you'll notice that there are a lot of members of staff from the Lindo wing in the behind the barriers just across the road there. Now they are waiting for them to leave. So I think we can finally say definitively they will be leaving tonight with the baby. It is very probably within the next 30 to 35 minutes.
Nicholas Witchell, thank you very much. And of course the world's media will be watching, and so will we, and you'll be able to watch those pictures over on the BBC News channel as they happen. Now, the longest heatwave in 7 years has been interrupted by dramatic thunderstorms across parts of Britain. Train services in Manchester were disrupted by signal equipment failure. Time-lapse footage filmed over 2.5 hours captured a storm over London. And in Nottinghamshire, lightning struck a number of homes, setting this one alight. Well, there's more of that kind of thing on the way. Thomas Schaffernacker, you're the man to tell.